I was standing in the back of the grand ballroom, champagne glass trembling in my hand, when my sister's voice cut through the music like a knife. "You seriously thought you could just show up here for free? Pay your own bill, Emma. $3,000. Cash or card?" She said it loud enough for the entire head table to hear, loud enough for our parents to turn their heads, loud enough for her new husband to smirk into his whiskey. I'm 24 years old. I work as a freelance graphic designer. I live in a studio apartment with furniture from Facebook Marketplace. And my sister, my older perfect golden child sister, just demanded I pay for my own seat at her wedding. Let me back up. This wasn't just any wedding. This was the event of the year in our family. Victoria had been planning it since she got engaged 18 months ago. She chose a historic estate venue, hired a celebrity florist, and invited 300 people. The dress alone cost more than my car. And me? I was invited exactly 2 weeks before the date. "Emma, I know it's last minute," she'd said over the phone, her tone dripping with fake sweetness. But someone canceled and I thought, well, you're family. You should be here. No +1. No bridal party invitation. Just a seat at table 17, near the bathrooms. I should have known something was wrong. But I came anyway. Because she's my sister. Because our parents begged me to be the bigger person. Because some stupid part of me still wanted her approval. I even brought a gift. Not just any gift, the gift. But I'm getting ahead of myself. When I arrived at the venue that afternoon, I was wearing the only formal dress I owned, a simple navy blue number I'd bought on sale 3 years ago. My shoes were scuffed. My jewelry was borrowed. But I'd done my makeup carefully, curled my hair, and told myself I could get through one night. The ceremony was beautiful, I'll admit that. Victoria looked stunning in her custom gown, all lace and crystals and drama. Our mother cried. Our father walked her down the aisle with pride radiating from every pore. I sat in the back row and clapped politely. Then came the reception. That's when everything fell apart. I found my assigned seat, table 17, just as promised, tucked in a corner where the air conditioning didn't quite reach. I sat down next to a couple I didn't know and tried to make small talk. The speeches began. Victoria's maid of honor gushed about their lifelong friendship. The best man told embarrassing stories about the groom. Our father toasted to his precious daughter without once looking in my direction. And then, during dinner, a woman in a headset approached my table. "Emma Rodriguez?" she asked, checking her clipboard. "That's me. I need to speak with you privately." My stomach dropped. I followed her to a side hallway away from the music and laughter. "There's been an issue with your seat," she said, not quite meeting my eyes. "What kind of issue?" "Well, apparently you weren't on the original guest list. You were added late, and the bride has requested that you settle your own portion of the catering fee." I stared at her. "I'm sorry, what?" "It's $3,000. That's the per-person cost for tonight. The bride said you'd understand." My hands went numb. $3,000 for chicken and green beans and a slice of cake. "There has to be a mistake," I whispered. "I'm just the coordinator, ma'am." But the bride was very clear. "If you can't pay tonight, she's asked that you leave before the cake cutting." That's when I realized my sister hadn't invited me to her wedding. She'd sent me a bill. I walked back into that ballroom with my heart pounding in my ears. And I marched straight up to the head table where Victoria sat like a queen on her throne. "Did you seriously just charge me $3,000 to attend your wedding?" She barely looked up from her conversation with her bridesmaids. "Oh, Emma, don't make a scene. You know how expensive weddings are. Everyone else paid. Why should you be special? Everyone else was invited more than 2 weeks ago. Details." She waved her hand dismissively. "Are you going to pay or not?" Our mother grabbed my arm. "Emma, please, not here." Not tonight, but I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. Because in my purse, tucked carefully in a gold envelope, was a check. A check for $200,000. And suddenly, I knew exactly what I was going to do with it. I took a step back from the head table, and every eye in the room seemed to find me. Victoria's face was flushed with champagne and irritation. Her new husband, Derek, leaned over and whispered something in her ear that made her laugh, a cruel, tinkling sound I'd heard my whole life whenever she thought she'd won. I'll need an answer, Emma, she said louder now. The coordinator is waiting. $3,000 or you can leave. Your choice. My father stood up, his face red. Victoria, that's enough. No, Dad. I'm tired of everyone treating Emma like she's fragile. She's an adult. Adults pay their way. The bridesmaids were recording on their phones now. I could see the little red dots. This was entertainment to them. Poor Emma, the struggling little sister being put in her place at the fancy wedding. I looked around the ballroom. 300 people, 300 witnesses. My voice came out steadier than I expected. You really want to do this here? In front of everyone? I'm not doing anything, Victoria said, examining her manicured nails. You're the one making it awkward. Just Venmo me the money and we can all move on. That's when I saw him. An older man, maybe in his 60s, sitting at table 3, the VIP section. He was watching the scene unfold with intense interest, his fingers steepled under his chin. He wasn't dressed like the other guests. His suit was understated, expensive in a way that didn't need to announce itself. And he was staring directly at me. Something about his gaze made me stand up straighter. Okay, I said quietly. You want me to pay? Fine. Victoria's eyebrows shot up. Seriously? But first I need to give you your wedding gift. That's traditional, right? Before I leave? She looked suspicious now, but her greed won out. It always did. Sure, whatever, make it quick. I reached into my purse and pulled out the gold envelope. My hands weren't shaking anymore. Everything felt crystal clear, like I was watching myself from above. This is from Grandma, I said. The room went quiet. Our grandmother, our mother's mother, had passed away 6 months ago. She'd been a formidable woman, a self-made millionaire who'd built a real estate empire from nothing. She'd been tough, sharp-tongued, and absolutely brilliant. And she'd loved me. Victoria's expression changed. Grandma's will was already settled. We both got $50,000. That's true, I said. The will was settled. But this isn't from the will. I held up the envelope, making sure everyone could see it. 3 weeks before Grandma died, she called me to her house. Just me. Not you, Victoria. Not Mom or Dad, just me. She was in her study, surrounded by all her business documents, and she said something I'll never forget. My sister's face had gone pale. Emma, what are you? She said, Emma, you're the only one who never asked me for anything. You're the only one who visited me because you wanted to, not because you wanted something. So I'm giving you a choice. The man at table 3 was leaning forward now, completely absorbed. Grandma set up a separate trust. Outside the will. It was her private money, her personal fortune that she'd kept separate from the estate. And she gave me control of it. Victoria's voice cracked when she screamed, That's impossible! Grandma wouldn't— $200,000, I continued, my voice cutting through her panic. That's what's in this envelope. A check made out to you, Victoria, for your wedding, for your future. Because Grandma knew how much this day meant to you. My sister's mouth opened and closed like a fish. She made me promise to give it to you today, at your wedding, in front of everyone. She wanted you to have it. Despite everything, I held the envelope out. Victoria lunged for it, but I pulled it back. But Grandma also gave me a condition, I said softly. She said if you ever treated me the way you used to when we were kids, if you ever humiliated me, used me, or threw me away like I was nothing, I could make a different choice. The entire ballroom was holding its breath. And charging your own sister $3,000 to attend your wedding? I smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. That counts. My mother gasped. Emma, no. So here's what's going to happen, I said, turning to face the crowd. I'm going to make a different choice with this money. One I think Grandma would actually approve of. Victoria found her voice, shrill and desperate. You can't! That money is mine. Grandma wanted me to have it. Grandma wanted you to be a better person, I said. She gave you chance after chance. We all did. The man at table 3 stood up suddenly. His movement was deliberate, commanding. Everyone turned to look at him. Excuse me, he said, his voice deep and authoritative. I couldn't help but overhear. And I think everyone here deserves to know something important. Victoria's face went white. Who the hell are you? He smiled. and it was the smile of someone who knew exactly how much power they held. "My name is Robert Chen. I was your grandmother's attorney for 35 years. And I have something to add to this conversation." The ballroom erupted in whispers. Robert Chen. The name meant nothing to most of the guests, but I watched the color drain from my mother's face. She knew exactly who he was. Victoria's grip tightened on the edge of the table. "I don't care who you are. That money is mine." "Emma is lying." "I'm not lying," I said calmly. "And Mr. Chen can verify everything I just said." Robert walked toward us with the measured pace of someone who'd spent decades in courtrooms. He stopped a few feet from the head table, his hands clasped behind his back. "Miss Rodriguez is correct," he said, addressing the room like a judge addressing a jury. "Margaret Chen, your grandmother, established a secondary trust 6 months before her death. She was very specific about the conditions." Derek finally spoke up, his voice tight. "Why the hell would her grandmother put those kinds of strings on a gift?" Robert's eyes were cold when they landed on him. "Because Margaret Chen was a brilliant woman who understood human nature. She built an empire by reading people. And she read her own family very well." My father tried to intervene. "Mr. Chen, perhaps we could discuss this privately." "No." Robert's voice was firm. Margaret was clear about this too. She said, and I quote, "If Victoria proves she's still the same selfish girl she's always been, I want everyone to see what Emma does next. Let it be public. Let it be a lesson." Victoria's maid of honor whispered something urgent in her ear, but my sister shoved her away. "This is insane. Emma, you can't do this. It's my wedding day." "Exactly," I said. "Your wedding day. The day you decided to humiliate your own sister in front of 300 people. The day you literally tried to charge me money for showing up." A woman at table 8 called out, "Wait, she really charged her own sister?" The coordinator, still hovering nervously nearby, nodded. "The bride requested a $3,000 payment from Miss Emma Rodriguez approximately 20 minutes ago." The whispers became a roar. Robert raised his hand and silence fell immediately. The man had presence. "The trust stipulates that Emma has full discretion over the funds. She can give them to Victoria, or she can allocate them elsewhere. The choice is entirely hers." My sister's scream split the air like breaking glass. "You bitch! You absolute bitch!" Grandma was senile. "This isn't legal." "Actually," Robert said quietly, "Margaret was evaluated by 3 separate physicians in the month before she created this trust. She was of completely sound mind. I have the documentation." Victoria turned to our parents, her perfect makeup starting to run with angry tears. "Mom! Dad! Do something! She's stealing from me." But our mother just sat there frozen. And our father looked at me. Really looked at me, for what felt like the first time in years. I took a breath and addressed the room. When I was 16, Victoria told our parents I'd stolen money from Mom's purse. I hadn't. She had. But they believed her, and I was grounded for 3 months. Victoria's face went red. "That has nothing to do with—" When I was 19 and got into art school with a full scholarship, Victoria told everyone I'd slept with the dean to get in. The rumors followed me for years. I almost dropped out. My voice was getting stronger now. When I was 22 and started my design business, Victoria told potential clients I was unstable and unreliable. I lost 4 contracts because of her. The bridesmaids weren't recording anymore. They were watching with horrified fascination. And 2 weeks ago, when you invited me to this wedding, you told me it was because you wanted to reconnect. You said you missed me. You said family was important. I held up the envelope again. But you just wanted another audience for your cruelty, didn't you? Another chance to remind me that I'm less than you. That I'll always be the poor little sister who doesn't measure up. Victoria's mouth trembled. For a second, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. "So here's what I'm going to do with Grandma's money," I said clearly. "I'm going to honor her in a way she would have actually wanted." Robert Chen pulled out a leather folder from inside his jacket. I took the liberty of preparing the paperwork. Just in case. Victoria lunged toward me, but Derek grabbed her arm. Vic, don't. Everyone's watching. I don't care, she shrieked. That money is mine. No, I said softly. It was Grandma's, and she gave me the power to do something good with it. I turned to face the entire ballroom. My grandmother built a foundation years ago to help young women start their own businesses. Women who didn't have family money or connections. Women who had to fight for every opportunity. Robert opened the folder. The Margaret Chen Foundation for Women Entrepreneurs. Your grandmother seeded it with $5 million before she died. Gasps rippled through the crowd. This $200,000, I said, holding up the envelope, is going directly to that foundation, in Victoria's name. My sister froze. What? Everyone here will know that on your wedding day, a donation was made in your honor to help women who actually need it. Women who aren't charging their own sisters $3,000 for a plate of chicken. The man at table 5 started clapping. Then table 8 joined in. Within seconds, half the ballroom was applauding. Victoria looked like she'd been slapped. Robert handed me a pen. The foundation director is here tonight, actually. Margaret invited her personally. A woman in an elegant gray suit stood up from table 3. She'd been sitting next to Robert the whole time. Thank you, Emma, she said, her voice warm. This donation will help at least 15 women launch their businesses this year. Your grandmother would be so proud. I signed the papers right there, on the head table, while my sister watched with tears of rage streaming down her face. But I wasn't done yet, because in my other pocket I had something else. Something that was about to make this night even more unforgettable. Victoria was shaking now, her hands gripping the table so hard her knuckles were white. You're going to regret this, she hissed. I'm going to make sure everyone knows what kind of person you really are. I met her eyes and didn't flinch. Go ahead, tell them. Derek stood up, trying to salvage the situation. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we've all had enough drama for one evening. Let's get back to celebrating. Sit down, Derek, I said. Something in my voice made him stop. Robert Chen was watching me carefully. The foundation director had a small smile on her face, like she knew something the rest of the room didn't. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a second envelope. This one was cream-colored, sealed with red wax. My mother recognized it immediately. Emma, no, please. What is that? Victoria demanded. This, I said, holding it up, is a letter. From Grandma. She gave it to me the same day she told me about the trust. She said I should only open it if you failed her test. The ballroom was so quiet I could hear the ice melting in people's drinks. Victoria's voice was barely a whisper. What test? The test of basic human decency, I said. Grandma wanted to see if you'd changed. If maybe, after all these years, you'd learned to treat people with kindness, especially family. I broke the wax seal. My hands were steady. She told me this letter contained the truth about something. Something our family has been hiding for a very long time. My father stood up abruptly. Emma, this isn't the time or place. You mean the same way this wasn't the time or place for Victoria to charge me $3,000? I shot back. Sit down, Dad. He did. I unfolded the letter. Grandma's handwriting was still strong and clear, even in her final weeks. My dearest Emma, I read aloud. If you're reading this, it means Victoria has shown her true colors once again. I'm sorry, my darling girl. I'd hoped she would surprise us both. Victoria's face had gone from red to gray. There's something you need to know. Something I should have told you years ago, but I was a coward. I let your parents keep the secret because I thought it would protect you. I was wrong. The entire room seemed to hold its breath as I read the next line. Victoria is not your biological sister. The explosion of gasps and shouts was deafening. Victoria stumbled backward, knocking over her champagne glass. That's a lie. That's a fucking lie! But my mother had buried her face in her hands, and my father was staring at the floor. I kept reading, my voice cutting through the chaos. 27 years ago, your mother had an affair with a man named James Whitmore. Victoria is his daughter. Your father knows. He's always known. They decided to raise her as his own, and they swore me to secrecy. No, Victoria whispered. No, But here's what they don't know, Emma. What I never told anyone. I looked up at the crowd. This is the part that matters. Robert Chen nodded at me. He'd known. He'd always known. James Whitmore was a con artist and a thief. He seduced your mother because our family had money. When she got pregnant, he disappeared with $50,000 from your parents' savings. They never reported it because they were ashamed. My mother was sobbing now. Margaret, please, we can explain. But I found him. I continued reading. I tracked James Whitmore down 15 years ago. He was in prison in Nevada for fraud and embezzlement. He died there 5 years ago, having never once asked about the daughter he left behind. Victoria collapsed into her chair. Her perfect wedding was crumbling around her and everyone was watching. Emma, you are my son's biological daughter. Victoria is the child of a criminal who used our family. Yet for your entire life, your parents favored her. They gave her everything. They made excuses for her cruelty. And they let you believe you were the problem. I folded the letter carefully. Grandma has had one more thing to say. My voice cracked for the first time. Emma, you are the true heir to everything I built. Not because of blood, but because of character. You have my strength, my integrity, my fire. Victoria has her father's selfishness and cruelty. And it's time everyone knew the truth. The silence that followed was absolute. Derek was staring at Victoria like he'd never seen her before. You knew about this? I didn't, she screamed. I swear I didn't know, but I wasn't sure I believed her. The way she'd always lorded her position over me, the way she'd always acted like she was untouchable. Had she known? Had our parents told her? My father finally spoke, his voice broken. Emma, your grandmother had no right. She had every right, Robert Chen interrupted. She watched you enable Victoria's behavior for 24 years. She watched you neglect Emma while spoiling a child who wasn't even yours. Margaret tried to talk to you countless times. You refused to listen. A woman at table 12 stood up. I'm sorry, but I can't stay here. This is unconscionable. She walked out. Then another couple left. Then another. Victoria's perfect 300-person wedding was hemorrhaging guests by the minute. Wait! Victoria shouted. Please. This is all a misunderstanding. Emma is just jealous. She's always been jealous. Jealous? I laughed, and it was a bitter sound. Of what, Victoria? Your lies? Your cruelty? The fact that you've built your entire life on a foundation of deception? Derek pulled away from her. I need some air. Derek, don't you dare leave me. Victoria grabbed his arm, but he shook her off. You told me your family was close, he said quietly. You told me Emma was the problem, but I just watched you try to extort your own sister for $3,000. What else have you lied about? He walked away, and Victoria let out a sound like a wounded animal. But I still wasn't finished, because there was one more revelation coming, and this one was going to destroy her completely. Victoria was on her feet now, mascara streaming down her face in black rivers, her perfect bridal makeup destroyed. Everyone stop! She screamed. Don't leave! This is my wedding. My wedding! But the exodus had already begun. Tables 7, 12, and 15 were empty. The photographers had stopped taking pictures. Even the DJ had turned off the music. I stood there with Grandma's letter still in my hand, watching my sister's world collapse in real time. My mother rushed over to me, her face desperate. Emma, please. You've made your point. Don't do this anymore. She's still your sister, is she? I asked coldly. Because for 24 years you treated her like a princess and me like a burden. Why, Mom? What did I ever do to deserve that? She couldn't answer. She just stood there, tears running down her face. Robert Chen cleared his throat. There's more, isn't there, Emma? I nodded slowly. Yeah, there's more. Victoria spun toward me, her wedding dress twisting around her legs. What else could you possibly have? You've already ruined everything! You've destroyed my wedding, my marriage, my life. No, I said quietly. You did that yourself. I'm just showing everyone who you really are. I reached into my purse one more time. This time I pulled out my phone. 3 months ago you called me, I said. Do you remember? Victoria's eyes went wide. You were drunk. It was 2 a.m. And you said some very interesting things. I held up my phone so the screen was visible to the nearby tables. I recorded the call. I wasn't planning to use it, but Grandma told me to keep evidence. She said, "Victoria will try to rewrite history. Don't let her." My father stepped forward. "Emma, recording someone without consent is legal in this state," Robert interjected smoothly. "As long as one party knows." Which Emma did. "Continue, Emma." I pressed play. Victoria's slurred voice filled the ballroom through my phone's speaker. "Emma, you there?" My recorded voice responded, "Vic? It's 2 a.m. What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. Everything's perfect. I'm getting married, Em. I'm marrying Derek fucking Whitmore, and we're going to be rich." Several people gasped. Derek had frozen halfway to the exit. The recording continued. That's great, Vic. "You know why I'm calling you? Because I want you to know something. I want you to know that I won. I always win. You with your little art school dreams and your pathetic design business. You're nothing. You've always been nothing." My mother closed her eyes. "Mom and Dad know it too. That's why they love me more. That's why they've always loved me more. Because you're just the spare Emma, the backup kid, the one they had in case I didn't work out." Victoria's voice in the recording became vicious. "And guess what? Derek's family is worth $12 million. His dad owns half the commercial real estate in the city. And I'm going to be Mrs. Whitmore. And you're going to be nobody." The phone recording continued, but I paused it. "Derek," I said, turning to him, "did you know your fiancée researched your family's net worth before your second date?" His face had gone completely white. "She told me all about it," I continued. "How she found your dad's company on LinkedIn. How she looked up property records. How she planned the entire relationship like a business acquisition." Victoria lunged at me, but Robert Chen stepped between us with surprising speed for a man his age. "Don't," he said firmly. "You've done enough damage. I haven't done anything." Victoria shrieked. "Emma is the one destroying everything. She's the one with the vendetta." "I don't have a vendetta," I said calmly. "I just have the truth. And you're right about one thing. I am going to make sure everyone knows it." I pressed play again. Victoria's drunk voice rambled on. "The best part? The absolute best part? I'm not even inviting Emma to the wedding." "Well, maybe I will. Maybe I'll invite her last minute and stick her at the worst table, just so she can watch me win. Just so she can see everything she'll never have." I stopped the recording. "You invited me 2 weeks ago," I said. "After everyone else. After the seating chart was done. You put me at table 17, next to the bathrooms, and then you tried to charge me $3,000 for the privilege of watching you win." Derek's voice was hollow. "You researched my family's money?" Victoria whirled on him. "Derek, don't listen to her. She's manipulating everything. I love you." "You love my father's real estate portfolio," he said flatly. "Jesus Christ, Victoria. No, that's not— yes, I knew about your family, but what?" Derek's voice rose. "But you thought it was okay to treat me like an investment opportunity? To plan our entire relationship around money? Everyone marries for money," Victoria shouted. "At least I'm honest about it." The remaining guests were riveted. This was better than any reality show. My mother tried one more time. "Emma, please stop this. You're tearing the family apart." I laughed. A sharp, bitter sound. "I'm tearing the family apart? Mom, there hasn't been a family in years. There's been Victoria, and then there's been everyone else scrambling to make her happy." "That's not true. When I graduated college, you didn't come to the ceremony because Victoria had a spa day planned." My mother flinched. "When I won the Regional Design Award, you told me not to brag because it might make Victoria feel bad about dropping out of her marketing program. Emma, when I was in the hospital with appendicitis, you left after 20 minutes because Victoria needed help picking out shoes." My father's head was in his hands now. "So no, Mom, I'm not tearing this family apart. It was never together in the first place." Robert handed me another document. "Your grandmother anticipated this moment too." I looked at the paper. My hands started shaking. "What is that?" Victoria demanded. What else did that manipulative old woman do? Careful, Robert said coldly. Margaret Chen was worth $27 million when she died, and she left very specific instructions about her estate. The room went dead silent. Victoria's voice was barely a whisper. What instructions? I read from the document. In the event that Victoria Rodriguez proves herself to be of poor character, as determined by Emma's testimony and evidence, the following provisions shall take effect immediately. My sister swayed on her feet. All trusts, inheritances, and future distributions allocated to Victoria Rodriguez shall be revoked and redistributed. No, Victoria breathed. The $50,000 previously given to Victoria from my estate shall be repaid within 90 days, or legal action will be taken to reclaim it with interest. You can't do this. Victoria screamed at Robert. That money is spent. The wedding, the dress, the honeymoon deposit. Should have thought of that before you extorted your sister, Robert said simply. Derek was backing toward the exit now, his face horrified. I need to, I'm sorry, but I can't do this. Derek, no! Victoria tried to run after him, but she tripped on her dress and fell to her knees. It was the most pathetic thing I'd ever seen. And I still had one final card to play, the one that would end this once and for all. Victoria was on the floor now, her $12,000 wedding dress pooling around her like a collapsed parachute. Her carefully pinned hair had come loose. Her tiara sat crooked on her head. She looked up at me with pure hatred burning in her eyes. I will destroy you for this, she whispered. I will make sure you never work again. I will tell everyone. Tell them what? I interrupted. The truth, please do. I'd love that. Derek had made it to the exit. The last I saw of him, he was loosening his tie and practically running out the door. Half the groomsmen followed him. My mother knelt beside Victoria, trying to help her up, but my sister shoved her away violently. Don't touch me! This is your fault! You and Dad and your fucking secrets? Victoria, please, no. I'm done. I'm done with all of you. But she wasn't done. Not yet. Because I could see her mind working, even through the tears and rage. She was calculating, planning her next move. She'd always been good at that. Victoria pulled herself to her feet, wobbling in her heels. She pointed a shaking finger at me. You think you're so smart, Emma? You think you've won? You have no idea what I know about you. Robert Chen stepped forward. I'd be very careful about making threats right now, Miss Rodriguez. It's not a threat, Victoria said, her voice gaining strength. It's a fact. Emma, do you want to tell everyone here about why you really dropped out of art school for a semester? About why you were sick for 6 months? My blood ran cold. No, she wouldn't. My mother's face went pale. Victoria, don't you dare. Why not? Victoria laughed, hysterical now. She's destroyed everything I have. Why should she get to keep her precious secrets? I felt like I was back underwater, drowning. That dark semester when everything fell apart. The depression. The medication. The hospital stay I'd hidden from everyone except my parents. And Victoria. I was 20 years old, she continued, addressing the room like she was giving a toast. Emma had a complete mental breakdown. She tried to... Stop! Robert Chen's voice cracked like a whip. But Victoria was beyond reason now. She tried to kill herself. Poor perfect Emma. And guess what? Mom and Dad covered it up. They told everyone she had mono. They paid off the school to keep it quiet. The room spun. I couldn't breathe. This was my worst nightmare. My darkest moment, exposed to 300 strangers like entertainment. But then I felt a hand on my shoulder. Robert Chen was beside me, his face like steel. That's enough. No, it's not, Victoria shrieked. She gets to ruin my life, but I can't tell the truth about hers? How is that fair? Because, a new voice said from the doorway, mental health struggles aren't character flaws, but extortion, manipulation, and cruelty absolutely are. Everyone turned. A young man stood in the entrance, maybe 25 or 26. He was tall, with dark hair and kind eyes. He wore a simple suit and carried a worn leather messenger bag. I'd never seen him before in my life. Victoria's face went white. "Who the hell are you?" The man walked into the ballroom with quiet confidence. "My name is Marcus Chen. I'm Robert's son. And I'm also Emma's attorney." "Her attorney?" My father stood up. "What are you talking about?" Marcus reached into his bag and pulled out a folder. 3 months ago, Emma came to my office. She'd started having suspicions about Victoria's behavior. The phone calls, the manipulation, the way your family dynamics worked. He looked directly at my parents. So we did some digging. With Emma's permission, we investigated Victoria's financial history. Her relationships, her pattern of behavior. Victoria took a step back. "That's illegal." "Actually, it's not," Marcus said calmly. "Everything we found is public record. Court documents, financial filings, social media posts that you thought were private but weren't." He opened the folder. "Victoria Rodriguez, formerly known as Victoria Whitmore, oh yes, everyone. She legally changed her last name back to Rodriguez 3 years ago when she found out about the Whitmore connection to money in this city. Has a very interesting history." Derek, who'd been about to leave, stopped cold. "What did you say?" "Your family name," Marcus continued. "Derek Whitmore. Your father, Robert Whitmore Sr., owns Whitmore Commercial Real Estate. Victoria discovered this 2 years before she met you. In fact, she engineered your meeting." He pulled out a printed email. "This is correspondence between Victoria and a mutual friend, asking for an introduction to that hot guy whose dad owns half the city. The date is 6 weeks before your chance encounter at that charity gala." Derek looked like he might vomit. But Marcus wasn't finished. "And here's the best part. Victoria has been engaged twice before, both times to wealthy men. Both engagements ended when she was caught stealing from their families." The gasps echoed through the ballroom. Victoria was shaking her head frantically. No, that's not true. He's lying." "Engagement number 1, Marcus read from his documents. "Christopher Park, son of Park Industries. Engagement lasted 4 months. Ended when the Parks discovered Victoria had stolen Mrs. Park's jewelry and pawned it. The Parks declined to press charges in exchange for the return of the items and a signed NDA. My mother made a choking sound. Engagement number 2, Jonathan Reeves, heir to the Reeves Hotel chain. Engagement lasted 7 months. Ended when Victoria was caught forging checks from his mother's account. Again, the family chose not to prosecute in exchange for repayment and an NDA. "This is slander," Victoria screamed. "I'll sue you." "It's not slander if it's true," Marcus said. "And we have copies of both NDAs, legally obtained through proper channels during discovery." "Discovery?" My father's voice cracked. "Discovery for what?" Marcus turned to me. "Emma, do you want to tell them, or should I?" I found my voice, though it shook. 3 months ago, I filed a civil lawsuit against Victoria for defamation, harassment, and intentional interference with business relationships. The room erupted. "You what?" Victoria's voice was barely human now. "The contracts I lost," I continued, my strength returning. "The clients who mysteriously stopped working with me. Marcus helped me trace it all back to you. Emails, phone calls, lies you told about me to destroy my business." Marcus held up more documents. "We have evidence of 23 separate instances of Victoria contacting Emma's clients with false information about her mental health, her reliability, and her professional capabilities." "That's a lie." "We have the emails, Victoria. We have recorded phone calls. We have witnesses willing to testify." My sister was backing toward the head table now, trapped. "The lawsuit was filed under seal," Marcus continued. "We were waiting until after the wedding to serve papers. We didn't want to ruin your special day." He smiled, and it wasn't kind. "But then you decided to charge your own sister $3,000. And we realized, why wait?" He pulled out an official-looking document with a gold seal. "Victoria Rodriguez, consider yourself served." The document hit the floor at Victoria's feet like a bomb. She stared at it, then at Marcus, then at me. Her face cycled through about 17 different emotions in 3 seconds. Shock, rage, fear, calculation, desperation. "You can't do this," she finally said, her voice breaking. "Emma, I'm your sister. You can't sue your own sister." "You're not my sister," I said quietly. You're the daughter of a con artist who used my family. And apparently the apple didn't fall far from the tree. Victoria's face crumpled. Mom, Dad, are you going to let her do this? My father looked 10 years older than he had an hour ago. Victoria, did you really steal from those families? It was a misunderstanding. Did you forge checks? I needed the money. Christopher was being cheap with his mother's money and I... So you did do it, my mother whispered. The remaining guests were paralyzed with fascination. This was the most dramatic thing any of them had ever witnessed. Marcus was still holding his folder. There's more. Should I continue, Emma? I nodded. He pulled out another document. This is Victoria's credit report. She's currently $78,000 in debt. Credit cards, personal loans, a car she can't afford, all maxed out. Derek, who'd been standing frozen by the door, finally spoke. 78,000? She was counting on this marriage, Marcus said matter-of-factly. The prenup you refused to sign? She was furious about that. We have text messages between Victoria and her friend Melissa where she explicitly discusses ways to secure the money, even without the prenup. Derek pulled out his phone, his fingers shaking. I need to call my father. Jesus Christ, I need to call my lawyer. Wait! Victoria ran toward him, stumbling in her dress. Derek, please! I love you! The money doesn't matter. You researched my family's net worth before we even went on a first date. Derek shouted. You planned this entire thing. You're a fucking con artist, just like your biological father. The words hung in the air like poison. Victoria's face went blank, empty, like something inside her had finally broken completely. Get away from me, Derek said coldly. Don't call me. Don't contact me. My lawyers will be in touch about the wedding expenses. He laughed. For real this time. The door slammed behind him with a finality that echoed through the silent ballroom. Victoria turned to face me. When she spoke, her voice was completely flat, emotionless. You destroyed my life. No, I said. You destroyed your own life. I just stopped letting you destroy mine. My mother was sobbing openly now. How did this happen? How did we end up here? Because you enabled her for 27 years, Robert Chen said bluntly. You taught her that cruelty had no consequences, that she could treat people however she wanted, that Emma existed only to make Victoria feel superior. My father finally stood up. That's not fair, isn't it? Robert's voice was sharp. When's the last time you told Emma you were proud of her? When's the last time you attended one of her gallery showings? When's the last time you put her first? Silence. That's what I thought, Robert said. I looked at my parents, really looked at them. My mother, who'd always been too tired to come to my school events. My father, who'd always had an excuse for why he couldn't make it to my graduations. Both of them, always too busy managing Victoria's latest crisis to notice I was drowning. I forgive you, I said quietly. My mother's head snapped up. What? I forgive you for choosing her over me, for believing her lies, for making me feel like I was the problem my entire childhood. Tears were streaming down my face now, but my voice was steady. I forgive you because holding on to that anger was killing me. Because I spent 3 years in therapy learning that your failures as parents don't define my worth as a person. My mother's sob echoed through the ballroom. Emma, please, we're sorry, we're so sorry. I know you are, I said. And maybe someday we can rebuild something. But not today. And not with her in the picture. Victoria laughed then. A horrible, broken sound. So that's it? You've won? You get everything. Grandma's approval, the moral high ground, your precious revenge. I don't want revenge, I said. I want peace, and I'll never have that while you're in my life. Marcus stepped forward again, which brings us to the final matter. Emma, are you ready? I took a deep breath. Yes. He pulled out one last document. This is a restraining order. Temporary for now, but it will become permanent after the hearing. Victoria's eyes went wide. A restraining order? You're not allowed to contact Emma in any way, Marcus continued. No calls, no texts, no emails, no social media messages. You're not allowed within 500 feet of her home or business. You can't do this? We already did, Marcus said. The judge signed it this morning. Emma filed the paperwork 3 weeks ago, after you called her and threatened to ruin her life if she didn't loan you $20,000. My mother gasped. You asked Emma for money? Victoria's face was pure rage now. She has money. Grandma left her everything. It's not fair. Life isn't fair, I said. You taught me that, remember? When you told me I'd never be good enough? When you told me I was the spare kid? When you spent 24 years making sure I knew my place? I picked up the restraining order and held it out to her. This is my place now. Away from you. Finally, permanently away from you. Victoria snatched the paper from my hand. Her fingers left smudges on the pristine white pages. I hate you, she whispered. I have always hated you. I know, I said. And that's why this had to happen. The ballroom was emptying now. The remaining guests were filing out in 2s and 3s, whispering to each other, already pulling out their phones to text their friends about the most insane wedding they'd ever attended. The coordinator approached nervously. Should we? Is there going to be a cake cutting? Victoria let out a hysterical laugh. There's no cake cutting. There's no wedding. There's nothing! She ripped off her tiara and threw it across the room. It hit a champagne tower and shattered glass everywhere. Victoria! My mother rushed toward her. But Victoria held up her hand. Don't. She looked at me one last time. Her makeup was destroyed. Her dress was torn. Her hair was falling down. She looked like a completely different person from the radiant bride who'd walked down the aisle 4 hours ago. I hope you're happy, she said. I'm not happy, I replied honestly. I'm just free. She walked out of the ballroom, alone, her wedding dress trailing behind her like a ghost. My parents sat at the head table holding each other, crying. The staff started cleaning up the broken glass. And I stood there with Robert Chen and Marcus, surrounded by the ruins of my sister's perfect day, feeling lighter than I had in years. But there was still one more thing I needed to do. One final piece of the puzzle that would change everything. Robert Chen cleared his throat, drawing my attention back to the nearly empty ballroom. Emma, there's one more matter we need to address, he said, his tone shifting to something almost gentle. Your grandmother left instructions for this exact moment. I wiped my eyes, trying to pull myself together. What instructions? He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a thick envelope, sealed with the same red wax as Grandma's letter. Margaret knew this confrontation would be painful for you. She knew dredging up your past, your struggles would hurt. So she left you something. My hands trembled as I took the envelope. What is it? Open it. I broke the seal. Inside was a handwritten letter and a set of keys. The letter was dated 3 days before Grandma died. My darling Emma, I read aloud, my voice cracking. If you're reading this, you've just survived one of the hardest nights of your life. Victoria has shown her true nature, and you've had the courage to stand up to her. I'm so proud of you. Marcus handed me a tissue. I hadn't realized I was crying again. I know she brought up your breakdown. Your hospitalization. The semester you lost? And I know she used it as a weapon, the way cruel people always weaponize vulnerability. My mother made a sound like a wounded animal. But Emma, that dark time in your life doesn't define you. It was a chapter, not the whole story. You survived. You got help. You rebuilt yourself from nothing. That takes more strength than Victoria will ever possess. I looked up at Robert. Why are you making me read this in front of everyone? Because your grandmother wanted witnesses, he said simply. She wanted people to understand what you've overcome, what you're capable of. I kept reading. The keys in this envelope are for a property I own in Portland. It's a beautiful craftsman house with a studio space in the back, perfect for an artist. The house is paid off. The property taxes are covered by a trust for the next 20 years. It's yours, Emma, free and clear. I stared at the keys in my hand. They were real, solid, heavy with possibility. I bought it 5 years ago, right after you showed me your first gallery exhibition. Do you remember that day? You were so nervous. Your hands were shaking when you showed me your paintings. But they were extraordinary, Emma. raw and honest and full of the pain you'd survived. My father was standing now, reading over my shoulder. I knew then that you needed space to create. Space away from this family's toxicity, space to become who you were meant to be. So I bought you a home, a sanctuary, a place where Victoria's voice can't reach you. The words blurred as tears streamed down my face. Grandma bought me a house 5 years ago and never told me. She was waiting, Robert said softly. Waiting for you to be strong enough to accept it, to use it, to understand what it meant. Marcus pulled out his phone and showed me photos. A gorgeous blue Craftsman with white trim, a wraparound porch, large windows, and in the back, a converted garage studio with skylights and exposed beams. It's worth approximately $450,000, Robert said. But it's not about the money. It's about giving you a foundation, literally and figuratively. My mother was sobbing. Margaret never told us. She never said anything. Because you would have told Victoria, Robert said bluntly, and Victoria would have found a way to poison it. To make Emma feel guilty for having something she didn't. He was right. They all knew he was right. I folded the letter carefully and looked at my parents. I'm moving to Portland, I said. I'm leaving tomorrow. I'm taking Grandma's gift and I'm building a new life. Emma, wait, my father started. No, Dad, I'm done waiting. I've spent 24 years waiting for you to see me, waiting for Mom to choose me, waiting for Victoria to stop destroying everything I touch. I'm done. My mother reached for my hand. Can we visit? Eventually? When things calm down? I pulled away gently. Maybe, but not for a while. I need time to heal. Time to figure out who I am when I'm not constantly defending myself. Marcus handed me another document. This is the deed. Already transferred to your name. Your grandmother handled everything years ago. I looked down at the paper. My name, Emma Rodriguez, owner of a home I'd never seen but already loved. Robert Chen smiled. A real smile this time, warm and genuine. Your grandmother also left funds for your moving expenses, and she established a monthly stipend from her trust. $3,000 a month for the rest of your life. I laughed through my tears. $3,000? The exact amount Victoria tried to charge me. Margaret had a sense of irony, Robert agreed. The coordinator approached hesitantly. Excuse me, the venue needs to close. We have another event tomorrow morning. I looked around the destroyed ballroom. Broken glass, abandoned tables, wilted centerpieces, the ruins of Victoria's perfect wedding. Of course, I said. We're done here anyway. But as I turned to leave, my mother grabbed my arm. Emma, please. Don't leave like this. Don't leave us. I met her eyes, really looked at her for the first time in years. Mom, I love you. I love Dad, but you made choices. Every single day for 24 years, you chose Victoria over me. You chose her comfort over my safety, her happiness over my mental health, her lies over my truth. We didn't know. You did know, Mom. You just didn't want to deal with it. It was easier to make me the problem. Easier to tell me to be the bigger person than to hold Victoria accountable. My father stepped forward. We failed you. I know that now. But Emma, you're still our daughter. We can fix this. Maybe, I said. But not today. And not on your terms anymore. I picked up my purse. The gold envelope, the one that had held the $200,000 check, was still inside. Empty now. Its purpose served. Marcus handed me his business card. Call me when you get to Portland. We'll finalize the lawsuit against Victoria, and we'll make sure she can't touch you again. Thank you, I said. For everything. Robert Chen extended his hand. Your grandmother was right about you, Emma. You have her fire, her backbone, her refusal to be diminished by small people. I shook his hand, feeling the weight of everything that had happened settling into my bones. As I walked toward the exit, I passed table 3, the VIP section where Robert and the foundation director had been sitting. Someone had left a gift bag on one of the chairs. The director called out to me, Emma, wait. That's for you. I picked up the bag. Inside was a framed photo I'd never seen before. It showed Grandma and me at my first art show. I was 22, nervous and young, holding a painting of a storm. Grandma was beside me, her arm around my shoulders, looking at me with such pride it made my chest ache. On the back, in her handwriting, "Emma, never let anyone dim your light. Not even family. Especially not family. Love, Grandma." I clutched the frame to my chest and walked out of that ballroom. Behind me, I could hear my mother crying. My father trying to comfort her. The staff beginning to clean up the mess. But I didn't look back. For the first time in my life, I was walking toward something instead of running away, and it felt like freedom. I drove home that night in a daze, the framed photo of Grandma and me sitting in the passenger seat like a talisman. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Text messages, voicemails, social media notifications. The wedding had exploded across the internet faster than I could process. Someone had live-streamed parts of it. The confrontation, Victoria's meltdown, my revelations. By the time I pulled into my apartment parking lot, our wedding drama was trending locally. I turned off my phone and went inside. My studio apartment suddenly felt suffocatingly small. The furniture I'd salvaged from curbsides. The art supplies crammed into every corner. The life I'd built from scraps and determination and sheer stubborn will to survive. I was leaving all of it behind. I sat on my secondhand couch and finally let myself fall apart. Not because I felt guilty, not because I regretted what I'd done, but because grief isn't linear and trauma doesn't care about justice. I grieved for the sister I'd never really had, for the parents who'd chosen wrong over and over, for the little girl I'd been, desperate for approval that never came. I cried until my throat was raw and my eyes were swollen shut. And then I got up and started packing. By 3 a.m., I'd filled 7 boxes with everything that mattered. My art supplies, my laptop, my grandmother's photo, clothes, a few books. That was it. That was my entire life, condensed into 7 cardboard boxes. Everything else could stay. The furniture, the dishes, the cheap decorations, they were artifacts of a life I was done living. I found my lease agreement and drafted an email to my landlord. 30 days notice. I'd forfeit the deposit. I didn't care. At 4 a.m., my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Emma, this is Marcus. I know you're probably not sleeping. Neither am I. Just wanted you to know the lawsuit is solid. Victoria can't touch you. And if you need anything during the move, I'm here." I stared at the message for a long time before responding. Thank you. For everything. For believing me when I thought I was crazy for documenting everything. His reply came immediately. You weren't crazy. You were protecting yourself. That's survival, not paranoia. Something about those words cracked open a space in my chest I hadn't known was closed. Why did you take my case? I typed. I couldn't pay you much. You could have said no. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. My dad told me about your grandmother. About what she went through building her business. About how she never forgot where she came from. And when I met you, I saw the same thing in you. The same refusal to stay down. I wanted to help. I wiped my eyes. I'm glad you did. Get some sleep, Emma. Tomorrow's going to be intense. He was right about that. I woke up 6 hours later to my phone exploding again. But this time, the messages were different. Former clients apologizing, saying they'd been contacted by Victoria but didn't realize the extent of her lies, asking if I'd be willing to work with them again. Art galleries in Portland, reaching out after seeing the social media storm, interested in showing my work. Wanting to meet when I arrived. News outlets, requesting interviews about the viral wedding confrontation. And buried in all of it, a single text from my mother. Emma, I know you don't want to hear from us right now, but I need you to know I believe you. About everything. I'm sorry it took me 24 years to open my eyes. I'm sorry I failed you. I'm sorry isn't enough, but it's all I have. I love you. Mom. I read the message 5 times, feeling something shift in my chest that I couldn't quite name. Anger? Relief? Grief? All of it at once? I didn't respond. I wasn't ready. Maybe I never would be. Instead, I called the moving company Robert had recommended. They could have a truck ready by noon. I spent the morning wrapping my paintings in bubble wrap and brown paper. Each one was a memory. A therapy session. A piece of the darkness I'd survived and transformed into something beautiful. The painting of the storm, the one from that first gallery show, was my favorite. Dark clouds, lightning, rain. But in the corner, barely visible unless you looked closely, was a single point of light. A star breaking through. That's what Grandma had seen in me. The light I'd managed to keep alive even when everything else was drowning. At 11 a.m., there was a knock at my door. I opened it to find Marcus standing there with coffee and a box of donuts. "Thought you might need fuel," he said with a tired smile. "How did you know where I live?" "I'm your lawyer. I know everything," he winked. "Also, it's on the case files." I let him in, suddenly self-conscious about the boxes and chaos. "Don't worry," he said, reading my expression. "I've seen worse. My sister moved to Japan with 24 hours' notice. This is organized by comparison." We sat on the floor, eating donuts and drinking coffee, and for the first time in months, I felt almost normal. "Victoria's been blowing up my phone," Marcus said casually, threatening to countersue, claiming emotional distress. "Can she do that?" "She can try. She'll lose. Badly." He took a bite of a glazed donut. "Her lawyer already called. They want to settle, quietly, before it goes to court and everything becomes public record." "What did you say?" "I said I'd talk to my client." He looked at me seriously. "Emma, this is your call. We can settle, probably get a decent payout and a signed agreement that she'll never contact you again. Or we can go to trial and bury her in public court documents." I thought about it. About Victoria's face when Derek walked out. About her crumpled on the floor in her wedding dress. About 24 years of cruelty and manipulation finally catching up to her. "I want to settle," I said quietly. Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Really? After everything?" "Not because I forgive her, and not because she deserves mercy." I wrapped my hands around my coffee cup, but because going to trial means more months of dragging this out. More depositions. More reliving the worst parts of my life. And I'm done living in the past. He nodded slowly. "That's very mature of you. Don't give me too much credit. I also want a clause in the settlement that if she ever contacts me again, for any reason, she pays a $50,000 penalty." Marcus grinned. "Now that's the energy I'm looking for. I'll draw up the papers." The moving truck arrived at noon, exactly on schedule. 2 guys loaded my 7 boxes and my few pieces of furniture in under an hour. That was it. My entire adult life, packed up and ready to go. Marcus walked me to my car, a beat-up Honda Civic that had seen better days. "Robert wanted me to give you this," he said, handing me another envelope. "More surprises? Always. Your grandmother was nothing if not thorough." Inside was a letter of introduction to a gallery owner in Portland, and a check for $10,000, marked "Moving Expenses and Fresh Start Fund." I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. Grandma had thought of everything. "She loved you so much," Marcus said softly. "I watched her plan all of this. Every detail, every contingency. She wanted you to be free, Emma. Truly free. I wish I could thank her." "You are thanking her by living the life she wanted for you. By not letting Victoria's poison define you." We stood there in the parking lot, the afternoon sun beating down, and I realized something. This was the beginning, not the end. Everything that had happened at that wedding, the confrontation, the revelations, the destruction, it wasn't the climax of my story. It was just the first chapter of the next one. The drive to Portland took 14 hours. I stopped twice for gas, once for terrible coffee at a rest stop, and spent most of the journey in silence. No music, no podcasts, just the sound of the road and my own thoughts finally settling into something like peace. I crossed the city limits just as the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink that looked like hope felt. The GPS led me through tree-lined streets to a neighborhood I'd never seen before. Quiet, beautiful. The kind of place where people actually knew their neighbors. And there it was, the blue Craftsman house from the photos. But pictures hadn't done it justice. The porch wrapped around the entire front with a swing hanging from chains. The windows glowed warm in the fading light. The garden was overgrown but charming, full of wildflowers and potential. I sat in my car for a long moment, keys in hand, afraid that if I blinked it might disappear. But it didn't disappear. I walked up the front steps, my front steps, and unlocked the door. The interior took my breath away. Hardwood floors, built-in bookshelves, a fireplace with original tile work, large windows that let in floods of natural light, and everywhere small touches that screamed Grandma's influence. A vintage writing desk in the corner, art supplies already stocked in the studio out back, a kitchen with modern appliances but classic charm. On the kitchen counter, I found one final letter. My hands shook as I opened it. Emma, welcome home. Yes, home. This isn't just a house or a refuge or an escape. This is your home. The first place in your life that's truly yours. With no strings attached, no conditions, no expectations except that you live fully and honestly and with joy. I've set up the studio with everything you need to create. The bedroom upstairs has a view of Mount Hood that I think will inspire you. And the garden needs work. But I have faith you'll bring it back to life. Just like you brought yourself back to life. I won't be there to see you blossom, but I know you will. I've always known. Create beautiful things, my darling girl. Fall in love. Make mistakes. Build a life so magnificent that Victoria's poison can't reach it. And know that every day I'm watching over you, so proud of the woman you've become. All my love. Always and forever, Grandma. I slid down the kitchen wall and sat on the floor, clutching the letter to my chest, and cried until there were no tears left. But these weren't tears of grief or anger or pain. They were tears of release, of gratitude, of finally being free. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Settlement accepted. Victoria agreed to all terms. $50,000 for damages. Permanent no-contact order. Penalty clause included. It's over, Emma. You won. I stared at the message for a long time. I won, but it didn't feel like winning. It felt like surviving. Like choosing myself for the first time in 24 years. Like understanding that some battles aren't about victory. They're about refusing to keep fighting in a war that was never yours to begin with. I texted back, thank you. For everything. Then I turned off my phone and walked through my new home, touching walls, running my fingers along bookshelves, imagining the life I was going to build here. In the studio out back, I found a blank canvas already set up on an easel, paints organized by color, brushes in every size, and a note in Grandma's handwriting, start here. So I did. I painted until 3 in the morning. Not the storm this time, not the darkness, not the pain. I painted light, golden, defiant, unbreakable light pouring through cracks and broken things. Light that refused to be dimmed by cruelty or manipulation or years of being told I wasn't enough. Light that looked exactly like freedom. 3 weeks later, my mother called. I almost didn't answer, but something in me had softened just enough to give her a chance. Emma? Her voice was small, scared. Is this a good time? It's okay, Mom, I can talk. I just wanted to tell you, your father and I have started therapy. Together and separately, we're trying to understand how we failed you so completely. I sat down on my front porch swing, watching the neighbors walk their dog. That's good, Mom, I'm glad. Victoria moved back in with us. The wedding cancellation, the lawsuit, the social media disaster. She lost everything. Her apartment, her job, her friends. Derek's family threatened legal action if she ever contacts them again. I felt a flicker of something. Not satisfaction. Not quite pity, just acknowledgement. How is she? Angry. Broken. Seeing a psychiatrist who thinks she has narcissistic personality disorder. She refuses to believe it. My mother paused. Emma, I'm not calling to ask you to forgive her, or us. I'm calling to tell you that I finally understand what we did to you. And I'm so sorry. I know, Mom. Can I ask, are you happy? Are you okay? I looked around at my porch, my garden, my house. At the life I was building from scratch. At the gallery showing scheduled for next month. At the therapy appointments I'd been keeping. At the version of myself I was becoming. Stronger, clearer, unafraid. Yeah, Mom, I'm more than okay. I'm free. We talked for 20 more minutes. Careful. Tentative. Like strangers learning to know each other for the first time. When we hung up, I didn't feel the old anger or resentment. I just felt neutral. Open to possibility, but no longer desperate for it. That evening, I walked to the local coffee shop and ordered a latte. The barista smiled at me. You're new to the neighborhood, right? Welcome. Thank you, I said. It's good to be here. As I sat by the window, watching the Portland rain start to fall, my phone buzzed with an email. Subject Gallery Exhibition, Emma Rodriguez Solo Show. Dear Ms. Rodriguez, we were incredibly moved by the work you submitted. Your piece, Unbroken Light, speaks to resilience in a way we rarely see. We would be honored to feature your work in our November exhibition. Please let us know if you're interested. I read it twice. 3 times. Then I replied, yes, I'm interested. Thank you for seeing me. And that's when I knew. This wasn't the end of my story with Victoria. It wasn't even really about her anymore. This was the beginning of my story with myself. The story of a girl who survived, who refused to stay broken, who took the cruelty thrown at her and transmuted it into art, into strength, into a life worth living. Grandma had given me more than a house or money or freedom from my family's toxicity. She'd given me permission to become exactly who I was always meant to be. And I was going to spend the rest of my life proving she was right to believe in me. I raised my coffee cup to the rain-streaked window, to the future spreading out before me like an unwritten page, to the grandmother watching over me from wherever she was. Thank you, Grandma, I whispered, for everything. For seeing me when no one else would. For loving me when I couldn't love myself. For teaching me that the best revenge isn't destruction, it's building something so beautiful that the people who tried to break you become irrelevant. Outside, the rain turned to mist, and through it, I could see a rainbow forming over Mount Hood. And for the first time in 24 years, I smiled and meant it completely.